All right.
Hello there.
Welcome to round two. Danny Batterman once again, alongside.
Rich Kiley. How's it going?
Going well after the kind of insane first match that we just watched.
I loved it. It was really fast paced, and I'm kind of happy Bug Delver took it because I felt like that was a tough matchup. So it was kind of nice to see a little bit of an underdog take that matchup. Not that I prefer one deck over the other, but
Yep. Speaking of Bug Delver, we've got it lined up again for you this match.
I am so excited for this match. I love Manaless Dredge. That deck is so nuts.
Here we see Bug Delver. We saw it last round, piloted by Rudy Briksza.
Yeah, his list is pretty sweet too. I personally don't love the Hymn to Talk version, but I really like the diversified threat based, and Snapcaster Mage gives a lot of value.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of him in 2017 Magic, but it's a very powerful 2-drop, which is, honestly does help with the curve. And I like the Tombstalker. I like the Tombstalker. I gotta be honest. If we're getting back in this world of like kind of gumming up on the ground and Tarmogoyfs and Leovolds and Deathrite Shamans. Yeah, and I understand Deathrite Shaman and Tombstalker is kind of a non-bo, but comparatively to like Gurmag Angler, you pay one more mana and flying is so good.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like barely a non-bo with Deathrite. Like the graveyard interaction isn't even too big of a deal. And you're not even really deploying Tombstalker particularly early. It's after you've kind of ground them down with all the Hymn to Talks and everything. So
yeah, and sneak peek of Bob's list again.
I'm going to be doing this one after this match.
Yeah, the inventor of Legacy looming large.
Inventor of Legacy.
Yeah, his shadow is looming large. But here we've got Manaless Dredge. So
yeah.
This is your. You said you love Manaless. I
don't love playing the deck. I just love the idea of the deck. It's so bizarre. It just can only really exist in this format. Like, it's ridiculous, and it attacks the metagame from such a weird angle. And what a weird deck.
So what does Manaless Dredge do for those who are unfamiliar?
Okay, so essentially the deck always wants to be on the draw, and it wants to draw and discard, theoretically, a Dredger, and if you're lucky, you'll discard a Phantasmagoyan, and Phantasmagoyan has an ability that allows you to discard 3 cards and return it from your graveyard to your hand. But you can stack that ability by holding priority, and you can discard your whole hand. And once you discard your whole hand, you either just dredge naturally, and you have a higher density of kind of threat-based cards, so more creatures and stuff like that. So your dredges are more likely to be impactful. Or you can churn through your deck faster with Street Wraith, which is uncounterable, so you're just dodging counterspells pretty much across the board. Or Jataxian Probe, which is counterable, and that does matter. That's definitely relevant, but it's not a huge deal. And your end goal is to dread return back a Battleshed Spy, a Gristlebrand, a Flare, and he has Whirlpool Rider too. And you're going to use all of those to just churn through your entire deck and kill them with Flay of the Hatebound.
Yeah. I remember when this deck was first developed. It was when Mental Misstep was still legal in the format.
Yeah.
And
Hollywood, Michael Keller.
Yep.
I think played at 9th place to an invitational.
And, this is, for people who are wondering, this was pre-recorded. I know I made a joke of it in the stream. Rudy is not ghosting. But this is opening hands. Rudy decided he didn't like his 7.
Yeah, I think you just need Deathrite or Delver, really. Like, Deathrite's obviously your best threat, but see, he mulliganed to a Deathrite here, and that's better. And Manaless just has to keep all of his hands. So
yeah, Manaless has to. This hand is not good. You don't have a Dredger. Like, what Manaless Dredge tries to do is that it discards during the cleanup step, so it becomes an uncounterable enabler.
Yeah.
Has an uncounterable enabler, and he doesn't have a Dredger. He has to keep regardless and try to.
I mean, he has 3 cantrips, so hopefully he'll get a little bit lucky, but he's not really doing much.
Yeah, the nice thing, the saving grace to this hand and is that Street Wraith is really good at combating Deathrat Shaman.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Because Deathrat Shaman, if you go to activate the ability to remove the Dredger or the Phantasmagorian, well, not the Phantasmagorian doesn't matter, but the Dredger or the Dredge, like that, the initial Dredger that Manaless Dredge tries to get back as what would be a Time Walk, you get to cycle Street Wraith in response, then that draw would trigger air quotes, a new Dredge. And it looks like the probe finds a Stinkweed Imp. So
yeah, and it's not even that particularly lucky. That deck it just has a lot of dredgers. I think it plays 16 dredgers because it has the 4 shambling shells. So
yeah, it's playing 16, which is a higher concentration than the normal dredge list, which play anywhere between 10 and 12.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Rudy's gonna cast Ponder, try to advance his game plan, as much as he can, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's just going to activate his Deathlight Shaman main phase, or maybe he's just going to use it for the creatures. I don't know. That's what it seems like he's doing here.
I mean, without knowing that Mack has this Street Wraith, it seems like Rudy would have tried to use it to snipe.
Yeah.
To snipe during Mack's upkeep. However, Mack decides to go for a little grittier to incite the death right now by triggering Street Wraith, and then create the blowout, quote unquote. That was described previously, using the second Street Wraith.
Yeah, and I like that play actually. It just forces Rudy into a line, or makes him think that he's a little safer, and then it just kind of it totally gets him. Like Dredge gets to go off almost completely here. So
yeah, I'm actually of a differing opinion. I personally would have personally waited for Rudy to try to remove my Dredger in the upkeep. Because that way I get a second Street Wraith as protection, because if he did not hit if he didn't, it makes him a little slower, but if it doesn't hit another Dredger like the Golgari Grave Troll that was previously purchased or, was previously gotten, and he's going to be fine because he hit a Narcomoeba and he hit a Prized Amalgam, and it looks like he hit Shambling Show with some bridges and a Nether Shadow. So he's got his engine going.
Yeah.
But I think allows him to play around a lot of, a couple of corner Casey fail scenarios.
Yep.
Especially since there's not much of a clock that Rudy's presenting on him.
Yep, that's totally fair.
Yeah. At the same time, there is such a critical mass of dredgers in this deck that
really, it's pretty unlikely to miss.
Yeah, it's really difficult to miss.
I can't really see what's in his graveyard. It looks like does he have a bridge?
Yeah, he's got 2 bridges, a Prized Amalgam, a Golgari Thug, a Dread Return. Looks like 2 Prized Amalgams.
Yeah. Oh, he has a Nether Shadow too. I see that.
Yeah, Nether Shadow. That the nifty thing about Nether Shadow in this deck is because the cards are being sent to the graveyard off a Dredge all at once, you get to choose the order, which means that you get to pile a bunch of creatures on top of the Nether Shadow.
Yep.
Which it plays over Bloodghast because it literally plays no lands.
Yeah, which is pretty sweet.
Yep.
Let's see. I guess Rudy's theoretically going to go after the creatures now. The deck also plays a pretty large amount of creatures that get recurred too, so it's pretty hard to just attack it with a Deathlight Shaman.
Yep. I definitely agree. It seems like if we go to Mack's end step, he's just going to have 7 power on the board. I imagine he's going to, because he doesn't. It looks like he has a Shambling Shell as a Dredger. Okay, he decides to go for Cabal Therapy, which is something that is totally makes sense. Gets rid of the Narcomoeba, triggers his 2 bridges. Looks like he's targeting him. Looks like he's targeting Rudy. He's naming. I can't even. Yeah, naming Brainstorm in the dark. Good hit.
Yeah,
yep,
definitely.
Goes to his end phase, gets back the Amalgams, now gets to pass the turn with a lot of power on board.
Yep,
would have had multiple Dredgers in his graveyard, and Rudy sees the writing on the wall that Deathrat Shaman was not going to do enough.
Yeah, Dredge is ridiculous. It just does its thing. If we call this the weather has lands.
Yeah, if you don't have hate, it's it's pretty easy to it's real easy to roll over and die.
Definitely, and he had hate. He had a death fight. So, which is kind of like a lot of people, I think, consider that like the death knell of Manaless Dredge, but Manaless Dredge can power through it. Like the deck is pretty resilient. So,
So looking at sideboards, we have on Rudy's side the obvious ones are Grafdigger's Cage, which Manaless Dredge, if it comes down turn one, basically can't
ends the game.
Yeah, basically can't do anything about. And surgical extractions, which
it's good at slowing him down. It's not going to end the game, but it's definitely going to give him a little more leeway. And it's a spell that does something. So, and the thing is, it's a relevant effect. But
yep. Okay. Yeah, I definitely agree. It also looked like he reached for Leovold.
Leovold's interesting. I would consider Pithing Needle, actually. It's not very good, but I think he has some bad cards, and Pithing Needle can name Street Wraith.
I was going to say, it can also name Phantasmagorian. Yeah. And it looks like he brought in some counter spells as well. From Mack's sideboard, he brought in some counter magic. Looks like he decided to bring in the Force of Wills.
Yep. Which would be awkward here if he has to force turn one because he won't be able to discard for a while.
Yeah. So here's I guess the real question. Because Rudy lost, does he know the tech? And we'll find out shortly. Does he know the tech about choosing to draw in this matchup?
I'm going to assume he does.
I'm gonna assume he does too.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Did he choose? I can't see who chose to be.
Yep. Absolutely did. Good job, Rudy. Way to know the format. So, because Manaless Dredge relies on its cleanup step to actually do anything, choosing to be on the draw is basically a time block.
Yeah.
It gives you an extra card, and it allows you to, do whatever you want. Looks like Rudy in chat was talking about how he brought in some counter magic too. I did see him motion for a Flusterstorm, which
that's fair.
Helps prevent Dread Return and Cabal Therapy, just as diversity of threats. Also allows him to potentially if he believes that Mack is bringing in Force of Will, it allows him to fight over that.
And Jataxian Probe.
Yep.
It's the only piece he can really disrupt, so it's something. His hand was a little weak in the matchup. He didn't really have any hate. He didn't have Deathright. He had Force of Will, but Force of Will doesn't do as much in this matchup.
No, but he has a turn 2 Sylvan Library, which allows him to dig incredibly. It's if he decides to just shotgun pay 8 life here, then there's a certain. Plus the extra draw from being on the draw. It's a certain point you have to make a conscious decision of how low you How low am I going to mulligan with this hand?
That's totally fair.
And especially knowing that Mack has Force of Will, has Force of Will and has roughly around a 40% chance to draw Force of Will plus enough blue cards, which, Mack does have, between Gitaxian Probe and Whirlpool Rider and Prized Amalgam and Narcomoebas and, other stuff to potentially bring in, like, Mindbreak Traps potentially, or Disrupting Shoal. How low can I go and how all in do I want to get?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's especially when he doesn't have a lot of graveyard hate. And he has the 4 Deathrights and the Surgicals and the Grafdigger's Cage. So
yeah. So, and he decided that, he was hoping on Sylvan Library to be enough. And it looks like we're going to be fighting over this probe, which honestly is a smart play on
I agree.
Rudy's part. It allows him to time walk, and Mack can't force back because that'd be essentially a triple time walk, knowing that his graveyard has.
I don't see any dredgers.
No, I see a Gitaxian Probe, I see a Gristlebrand, I see a Balustrade Spy, and I see it looks like an Icarid.
Yeah. I wonder if he was just not supposed to Gitaxian Probe there, because that would give him the option to just discard no matter what. He needs to get the dredger in there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Gitaxian Probe was, that was an ambitious line that did not work out. And, with the Deathrite Shaman that Rudy found, and a fetch to clear off some of the jank, he can run out Deathrite plus Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf's going to be a very large clock, and this Deathrite, Mack might have to force. He might have to time walk himself for
forever.
Basically because he doesn't have Street Wraith.
Yeah.
So that Deathrite Shaman is going to pick off his one Dredger, and it's not gonna. And you saw it took him a while. He was in the tank about this, and he decided to go for it.
I think it's the right play. It doesn't look pretty, but he has to do what he has to do here.
Yeah, and I mean he has an Icarid to start tentatively beating down with.
Not even through the Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, it won't get through the Goyf. It won't. It's not gonna actively make a real difference in the Sylvan Library clock. He's just gonna have to leave it. He decides to go for it, and draws. Yeah, it's. Wow. Oh, it looks like he did have a Dredger.
Oh, okay. If he had a Dredger, then that kind of changes everything.
That was my fault. The screen was a little small. But
I really couldn't see it at all. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like there was a Street Wraith in the yard. And he hit a Grave Troll.
Okay. So I was going to say that Rudy looked pretty far ahead if there wasn't a Dredger here, but since there was a Dredger, I think Dredge is still pretty solidly favored here.
Yeah, it's definitely. I definitely don't hate its spot.
Rudy has some looks though. If he can find a Grafdigger's Cage, the game could end pretty quickly.
Yes. He decided to only pay 4 off the Sylvan Library, being a little conservative, keeping Daze as basically a hard counterspell.
Yeah.
And Brainstorm to help dig him deeper if needed. It looks like the graveyard now is Icarid, Thug, Grave Troll, Thug, Force, Probe, Dread Return. So it's chock full of goodies. Cage is likely. Cage might still do it if he hits it on time. Because there are no, other than Icarid, there's no real way to recur anything. He did hit, because there aren't any bridges, there aren't enough creatures yet. He did hit a Bellstrike Spy.
Yeah, I saw that. And
there is another Shadow for next turn. So, because Mack has no lands in his deck, Bellstrike Spy will, a Dread Return on a Bellstrike Spy will lead to game over.
Yeah, definitely.
Graveyard his deck, and then he'll get the Cabal Therapy, all the nonsense away. He can even Cabal Therapy himself to dump more Cabal Therapies.
Yeah, totally. And Rudy does have the Daze though, so unless he finds the Cabal Therapy, then he'll be pretty well protected. Oh, Spell Pierce here too isn't the worst.
No, it's not. We're in this interesting little dance because Mack has his engine online.
Yes.
He needs, if he's able to actually resolve a Dread Return, the game's probably over.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
The thing he does not have at the moment is he doesn't really have a full-on critical mass of creatures. He has the Nether Shadow that is likely coming back next turn.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that based on the way the graveyard is being displayed on our screens. It might not. I am personally not familiar with Manaless Dredge on Moto and the graveyard display. I know people who are familiar with it. I know would know. That is my fault. I don't play as much Moto as I should.
Yeah, you should probably play more Moto.
Yeah, Icarid for sure has enough food between the Golgari Thug, the Phantasmagorian, that allows him to discard the Cabal Therapies.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Looks like the other Nether Shadow too. So he's got. All right, it's really, this flip is going to be very big because he's going to have enough creatures at the moment to bring back enough fodder for Dread Return and be able to fire off a Cabal Therapy on a piece of Disruption.
Yeah, I think if he finds one more creature or a Bridge from Below, which he did, then I think he can do it this turn because he has 2 therapies. He can power through 2 dazes with that, and then Dread Return back to Spy and proceed there.
The second therapy is going to be blind, because what Rudy can do is he can actually he can pay the alternate cost of days by tapping his Underground Sea and his Wasteland, or his Underground Sea and his Bayou.
Yeah, that's true.
And then still have enough, still have 2 islands in play to play the proper cost of days.
Yeah.
So if Mack has the Stone Cold Soul Read on naming days blind,
I don't think
he also could have let it resolve. The other thing Rudy can do is he can let it resolve and just say, please name a card. And if he doesn't hit exactly days, he can then do the play I was just discussing, where he can hardcast days and then bounce the tropical island for the other one. And there would still, which would buy him a turn. And that turn would be enough, because we know he has a Spell Pierce on top of his deck.
Right.
Yeah. So it looks like name Surgical Extraction. Reasonable name. Yeah. Especially because, once again, we have deck lists. Sees 2 dazes. And that...
He only has 1 more therapy, right? He definitely only has 1 more? Okay.
Looks like he only has 1 more therapy.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. It's a little... My Skype screen is a little small, because I got to keep chat up.
Yeah, same here.
That we've been... So, but I think, the thing that Rudy does have to worry about is, because of the aggressive Sylvan Library, which I do like. He is at 8. Mack has, a point of flying in the air, which is not the quickest clock in the world, but is still relevant.
Yeah.
And also has 2 Ichorids in the yard, 1 more on the board, alongside at least a bridge. So this board's going to get very gummed up very quickly on the ground.
I like this line from Doyle, because he can literally just hold back and survive until he's going to win the game here. Ichorid plus bridge is going to be very good here, because he can just block the Delver with the...
Yeah, Delver is going to flip.
Yeah.
Because we know about the Spell Pierce that Rudy likely put on top. Yep, there it is. And blank magic cards.
Yeah.
He does not have the life to even pay to go down by... Obviously, he doesn't have the life to pay the full 2. That would kill him. Proof. I don't have a shoe on my head, but I have an iPhone, and I'll do this. Okay. So now Rudy has to tank, because he has to work out math, because he knows about the 3 Ichorids coming out of Mack's yard. He knows about... he knows about Dread Returns, I guess, but Mack doesn't actually have to cast a spell. He literally can just Ichorid make 3 Ichorids pass the turn, and make zombies and eventually flood the board. He's got the time. He also can generate another zombie by blocking with his Narcomoeba at virtually any point. He doesn't even have to block now.
Yeah. I think Doyle has lethal, because he's going to bring back the Ichorids, and then he can block 2 of the Ichorids, then he'll get through 3 damage, then plus, the Narcomoeba and the 2 zombies. That's 8 damage, so...
Yeah, and I think there's also might be another Shadow in his yard, too?
Yeah, I think so.
So, which has haste.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, 3 Ichorids come out.
Yep, and that should do it if Doyle just attacks with everything.
Yeah. I agree. That's the match.
All right, that was an exciting one.
Yeah, it was definitely decisive. It was close in spots. There were a lot of options. There were options from Manaless Dredge in terms of how much play it had in its sequencing and when it decided to time walk. There were options,
and mulligan decisions from Rudy.
Yep. Mulligan decisions from Rudy, and decisions on how much to pay for Sylvan Library and when to fire it off. That's a lot more nuanced. I know he was talking in chat about how he should have Sylvaned how he should have silvered differently, or how she should have mulliganed to 5 to find more hate. And how he, the Singleton Ponder and the Sylvan Library probably wasn't enough.
Yeah, I might be inclined to agree. The deck does give Manaless Dredge does give you a little bit more time than a normal Dredge deck, but you still don't have that much time. You still need to interact with the graveyard ASAP. So
yep. All right. So that was round 2. I think I would, before we get out of here and start round 3, I would like to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, Card Hoarder, Living Cards or Card Magics, and oh gosh, Matt Pazik. I'm probably butchering that last name. I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry,
I think it's
Matt.
Pavlik.
Pavlik.
I'm not sure.
Pavlik. I'm so sorry, Matt. Please don't fire. Please keep supporting the stream, despite the fact that I can't pronounce names. If it makes you feel better, I've had my name butchered on coverage plenty of times.
Your last name's Battleskull, right?
Yeah, it is. That's my name, but including by one of my best friends who has completely butchered my name on coverage. So. But without their sponsorship, the stream wouldn't have been able to happen. We wouldn't be able to give you, pretty high quality Legacy with, pretty cool decks and, good insight for those of us needing to prepare for GP Vegas, especially for those of us whose decks just got banned.
Yeah.
Yeah.